Good evening, everybody. Boy, I hope y'all are doing all right. I'm fantastic. Got me a wonderful fire burning over there in my old King wood stove. Been out here building spinner baits, and man, it's just hunky-dory. So y'all got me running building spinner baits, and I sure appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and I'm glad to hear some of y'all catching a lot of fish on the stuff I'm sending you and building you. Just makes my day. So, but man, first cold, really, this is the first really cold actually, fall day, the wind blowing, and what a day to have been throwing a spinner bait. I had a bunch of stuff I needed to get done today because I went fishing all day yesterday with Mr. Dale Verts. Boy, we had a fine time. I got some stuff coming up on about that too. But I've had a lot of guys, a lot of people reach out to me about the trailer I was throwing on my spinnerbait, that chartreuse one last week. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to talk about trailers. I'm going to talk about the three I throw. I don't see much on spinnerbait trailers on YouTube. Hardly guys talking about that. Even I mean, you hear tons about a chatterbait trailer or jig trailer, but I don't see much on spinnerbait trailers. So I think we'll talk about them for a little while. And since the advent of the longer skirts that we have nowadays, trailers kind of got left by the wayside a little bit. Used to, you didn't even consider throwing a spinnerbait without a pork frog on there or a ripple rind or a grub or something. But when this longer skirt came out, trailers kind of became a second thought on spinnerbait. And it's kind of interesting because a lot of people don't throw a trailer, nor did I for quite a while there once that longer skirt came out. But nowadays, I pretty well throw a trailer on a spinnerbait 90% of the time. I will have some type of trailer on there. I just like the way it fills my skirt and fits in the spinnerbait. I might even like a little bit thinner skirt with a nice trailer on there. I just like the way it makes my bait feel. So I thought I'd talk about the ones I like the most and go from there. So you take it for what it's worth. But by far, the one that I throw the majority of the time, and this is an old school type trailer, back in the old days, Burke, and even, I think it all really started back in the Uncle Josh days with those split tail eel, people putting those on spinner baits, and it just kind of turned into a plastic thing. But that is just the plastic split tail trailer, just plain spinnerbait trailer. Day in and day out, I could live with just this trailer from here on out, and I'd be just fine. It's probably my favorite. It really does. It adds some action to your skirt, but more than anything, it'll kind of bulk up the body of your bait a little bit. I think that sometimes having a little plastic on there is kind of like a piece of plastic on a buzz bait. It really gives the fish something to vacuum in on and pull it into his mouth. So I like that extra bit of plastic on there that just creates some bulk on that bait and the fish can get it. It also adds some little action on the tail, the two little legs back there just flickering along like that because they're just going to wiggle like that. So between those two or three things, I just really like that trailer. It doesn't overpower the bait. It doesn't slow the bait down any. By far, it's 70% of the time, this is the trailer I'm going to go to. I keep it really simple on colors. I like the chartreuse with glitter, like this one right here. And then I like the white or the pearl white, those other two. And I like to kind of mix and match. I really like the chartreuse one on a white spinnerbait or a white and chartreuse spinnerbait, or this on a bone spinnerbait. That contrast of color, you got the chartreuse on the inside around a bone or white. And then on a chartreuse spinnerbait, many times I'll go with a white one on there, just to create some contrast with my bait. So I'm constantly kind of like the old jig thing. Black with blue or black with brown or a black with green pumpkin. I really like to kind of mix those colors up a little bit, and that's how I like to do it with a spinnerbait. I like the sparkle and the chartreuse with sparkle. I think it adds a little bit of extra glitter flash in there. Just my personal preference and by far my favorite trailer. So that's number one. I don't bite it off or anything. I thread it straight up on the spinnerbait. And I run the legs flat. You know, I want them to be, you know, I just run it up on the bait like that right there. I want the legs to be crossway like that. And that's all there is to it right there. And as you can tell, see it, with these longer skirts, it doesn't add a whole bunch, but it is back here flickering around. But I do like that extra bulk for a fish to get a hold of. So that's my favorite one. Now, secondly, my second most favorite trailer, and I'm beginning to use this trailer a lot more for a lot of different situations. And this is Rick Clunn's favorite trailer. This is what Rick Clunn has used on a spinnerbait forever and ever. And I'm leaning toward it more and more is the old 4-inch ringworm. I like ringworms anyway on jig heads, as y'all know, but I really like this bait when I'm fishing really clear water. This is what I turn to. I've got some that are kind of this firecracker color. I've got some clear with like a salt and pepper with a chartreuse tail. And then I have some white with like a silver flake in it, like this one here. There's some different, more translucent colors. And I really like it on my translucent looking baits like this mouse colored spinnerbait. I really like, it doesn't overpower the bait. It blends in with it. So when I'm fishing my translucent colors in ultra clear water, I really like this ringworm. It's kind of what I turn to in that. And I really like the little tiny, that little curly tail just back there. I mean, it's just, it really has a lot of action. Sure enough, like you're fishing that bait pretty quick. So, and the same thing, I just thread the whole thing up on there. I don't bite it off or nothing, just up on the shank of the hook. Let that little tail hang out the back there like that. Has a lot of action. It doesn't overbulk the bait or anything like that, kind of like that split tail, but it does give a, if you're burning this bait, gives that fish something to create some vacuum, to suck that bait in over just the skirt. It doesn't get in the way of a trailer hook. That's what I like in clear water. And I've bought some chartreuse ones and some other colors, and I'm gonna start using it maybe a little more in some other situations like the other, just because I'm really starting to like this even more. So it's not something I'd used in the past, but I've been experimenting around with it the last few years. Really, really like this trailer. And sometimes maybe it's just, everybody uses split tail. Maybe it's a little different. I like it. And last but really not least is the one I had on the spinnerbait this week that you saw, and that is just an old school. Now this is a sure enough old school spinnerbait trailer right here. It's a 6-inch Mr. Twister style, just kind of a U-shaped grub, just a big grub like this right here. And this is a classic spinnerbait trailer. And man, growing up as a kid, all the spinnerbait gurus that I knew, this is what they used right here. Now, interesting enough, a lot of those dudes that I knew, they didn't bite this thing off. They did nothing. They threaded that whole worm up on there. And they threw it like that right there. Big trailer, added a lot of bulk, big wagon tail on the back. I don't necessarily like doing it like that much, but I'll bite that thing off about halfway like that right there, and then thread it up on my skirt. That's how I had it the other day, and it was something like that right there. Now, this trailer definitely has a place, and when I like this trailer right here, is I like it when I'm using a Colorado bladed bait like this right here, or a single Colorado, when I'm not wanting to fish quite as fast. I'm wanting to slow that bait down a little bit, and this trailer, you'll be amazed, just that big tail back there doing this, it really kind of slows that bait down. It's easier to ease that bait along. That big trailer's back there swaying along. You've got these Colorado blades thumping along. Like the other day down the river, that water was really muddy, and it wasn't cool by any means, but I wasn't wanting to bring that bait too quick. And that's when I turned to this trailer. It's a great trailer in the early spring. or even going into the winter when things kind of starts, you want to slow down a little bit. And that's when I turn to this. It just kind of slows the bait down. Again, it adds some bulk to the bait and it creates a big profile. When you start dealing with cooler water and you're slowing down that bait, you're fishing, to me, when I'm fishing a Colorado bladed top bait, I'm looking for a certain caliber of fish that's going to want to eat something that's pretty good size. He's looking for a meal. That's when I'm going to turn to this trailer. And it's one that I kind of got away from way back when, but I'm starting to kind of bring it back into the scheme of things. And again, it's something you don't see many people throw anymore. And I'm always looking for something a little different that I don't think, you just don't see these on the back of spinnerbaits anymore. So anything like that's going to be a little bit of an edge for you. So that's the why that for me personally. And I'm just going to say this about fishing. Sometimes you get tired of throwing the same thing every time. Maybe you just want to do something a little different. You know what? That's the great part about this sport. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. Some days you just go, I want to throw a curly tail trailer on my spinnerbait. There ain't no science behind it. There ain't no algebra behind it. There ain't nothing other than today I would rather throw that. You need to remember that in your fishing. This is important. It's okay just to do what you want to do. It doesn't have to make sense to the bass. It doesn't have to make sense to the books or your buddies or me. You just do what you think. Man, I feel like I ought to throw that curly tail today. Or I feel like I ought to throw that ringworm today. That's why I keep all of them in the colors I like. This curly tail, again, I keep a chartreuse with glitter. I keep a few actually old school yellow for like really muddy water. And I keep solid white. If them three ain't gonna get it done in this kind of situation, yeah, I'll throw something else. But that's kind of why I do what I do with the trailer. And it's fun to change up things and learn different things. So always be going back and relearning something. This trailer I hadn't used in years, but I'm beginning to use it again. That's okay. I do sell these through Arkansas Custom Tackle. If it's something you're looking for, I would say this is pretty hard to find out there. I've got a huge stock of them that I sell through my company. I have it in, right now, I only have it in the chartreuse glitter, solid chartreuse, and a yellow. If any of you would be interested, would like some of them or get some, just send me a message, reach out to me on my Facebook or my YouTube. Be glad to sell you some through Arkansas Custom Tackle if you're interested. And also the firecracker ringworm, I have lots of those for sale. And I'm getting ready to have a large stock of the other colors down here soon of chartreuse and white. So if that's something you're interested in, I have plenty of these that are for sale in the store. So let me know. I try not to sell much on my channel here, but I've had a lot of people asking. Reach out to me if there's something like that you're interested in. I'll be glad to fix you up. I can't say thank you enough to everybody that has reached out and bought baits, that has commented on the channel. Well, I've really gained a lot of subscribers over the last few weeks. It's really been quite humbling. I appreciate all of you watching, paying attention. It makes my day. I never dreamed that this would turn out quite like it has. So with that, I've been rattle-babbling on here for 14 minutes. Good grief. I normally don't let my videos get that long, but I appreciate you. And you better get your spinnerbaits out because it's time. We'll catch y'all later.